The moment Keanu Reeves stepped into the Maison Leroux boutique, everything seemed to change. It wasn't a big, loud change, but something was different in the air. It was like the quietness in the store thickened, making it feel even more still. The store smelled like lavender mist and fresh leather, which made it feel fancy. The walls were white and shiny, and the items were all lit up by bright, beautiful lights. The store looked expensive. It was like a museum, but instead of art, there were things to buy. There were soft velvet stools that no one ever sat in, and every item was displayed like it was the most important thing in the room. But it wasn't the things that made the store feel different when Keanu walked in. It was the people. There were 3 workers standing behind the counter, and only one of them looked up when Keanu entered. She noticed his hoodie right away. She didn't even look at his face at first. Then her eyes traveled down from his hoodie to his jeans and old sneakers. Her face didn't change, but her look said everything. He doesn't belong here. She turned to the others and whispered something. One of the other workers laughed softly. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that wasn't meant to be heard, but you could hear it anyway. Keanu didn't say anything. He didn't fidget or pull out his phone. He didn't do anything that might make it seem like he wasn't confident. He just calmly walked to the left side of the store. There, a display showed the store's newest collection. Deep navy coats, smooth wool trousers, and a beautiful shiny jacket that looked like a work of art. Keanu stood in front of the display, admiring the jacket. He didn't touch it. He just looked at it, appreciating how well it was made. Then the sound of high heels clicking on the floor filled the air. Keanu turned, and there, standing in front of him, was a woman. She was young, very polished, and looked like she fit perfectly in the fancy store. Her skin was flawless, her ponytail was slick, and her lipstick was bright. Her name tag said Chloe. She smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like you weren't welcome. "Can I help you find something today?" she asked, but her voice sounded like she was saying, "You don't belong here." Keanu nodded politely. "Just looking," he replied, trying to keep things simple. Chloe's smile stayed tight. "These pieces are part of our signature collection. They are only available if you make an appointment first," she explained, clearly thinking he didn't know the rules of the store. Keanu answered quietly, "I didn't know." "Oh, no worries," Chloe said, her tone still a little too sweet. "But we have a catalog online if you want to see something more affordable." Behind her, the other workers were watching, pretending not to notice. One of them tapped something into their phone, probably gossiping about Keanu. Keanu didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he looked back at the jacket. He was still admiring how beautiful it was. "It's a beautiful jacket," he said. Chloe crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. "Yes, it is. But most of our clients work directly with a stylist to make things easier. It's how we do things here." Keanu heard what she was saying. He understood, but he didn't let it bother him. He smiled just a little bit and said, "I won't be long." Chloe's voice dropped a little, getting colder. "Please don't touch anything unless someone helps you." She finished her sentence quickly, then turned and walked away as if she had just finished a task. Keanu stayed where he was. He didn't move. He didn't touch anything. He just kept looking at the jacket. It was clear he wasn't interested in making trouble. He was just quietly enjoying the beautiful work of the jacket. But that made Chloe uncomfortable. Chloe didn't walk far. She stood by the counter, pretending to look at her phone. But even though she acted like she wasn't watching him, her eyes kept sneaking looks at Keanu. He hadn't moved, hadn't touched anything, hadn't spoken to anyone. He was still standing there, calm and peaceful. That bothered Chloe. Maison Leroux wasn't a store where just anyone could walk in off the street. It was a place for fancy, polished people. People who wore expensive clothes. People who called ahead to make an appointment. People who didn't wear old sneakers or hoodies. People who had drivers waiting outside, not people like Keanu. "Seriously?" Chloe whispered to the worker standing next to her. "How long is he going to just stand there, acting like he's going to buy something?" The other worker, Maya, looked up for a moment. "He's not doing anything wrong." Chloe laughed quietly, but it wasn't a kind laugh. "That's the problem. He's just standing there like he owns the place." Maya gave her a funny look. "What if he does?" Chloe rolled her eyes and scoffed. "I've met the owners. They don't look like him." Chloe pushed herself off the counter and walked slowly toward Keanu. Her heels clicked loudly on the floor with each step, and she made sure he could hear her coming. When she reached him, she stopped. Keanu hadn't moved. He was still standing by the jacket, his hands in his pockets, looking closely at the stitching. He looked like he really understood how much care and effort had gone into making it. Chloe stopped beside him. She stood too close, almost invading his space. That piece is hand-sewn in Milan, she said in a voice that was sweet but cold. There are only 6 of them in the world. Keanu nodded, not flustered at all. It's beautiful, he said simply. Chloe didn't stop there. It's priced at $12,000, she said, looking directly at him. Keanu nodded again like he already knew that. I figured, he said calmly. Chloe was surprised. She thought he would react more. Maybe she was expecting him to be shocked or uncomfortable. But Keanu just stayed calm, and that made Chloe more annoyed. She had expected him to show that he didn't belong, but he didn't. Do you work in fashion? Chloe asked, trying to find out more about him. No, Keanu answered simply. Well, Chloe said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, sometimes people think they want luxury, but they don't realize what's required to enjoy it. They don't understand what it takes to belong in a place like this. Keanu looked at her, not with anger, but with something else. Something that made Chloe feel small. He wasn't reacting the way she thought he would. He just stayed calm and steady. Chloe continued, you have to have the right presentation, the right style, the right way of carrying yourself. You have to know how to belong. Keanu nodded slowly like he was listening, but he didn't say anything. Behind them, 2 other customers stopped by the display of watches. One of them was secretly filming Keanu with their phone. Chloe didn't notice though. She was too focused on her performance with Keanu. Chloe stepped forward and reached to take the jacket off the display. Let me take this off the display, she said, her voice still icy. We like to keep it pristine. Keanu stepped back, making sure to give her space. I understand, he said quietly. But in his eyes there was something different. It wasn't anger. It wasn't an upset feeling. It was recognition. He had seen this kind of treatment before. He just didn't expect it in a place like this. And Chloe didn't know she was part of the performance. Chloe stood there for a moment, just a little too long, resting her fingers on the hanger like she was protecting the jacket from people she thought didn't deserve it. She smoothed the fabric down, though it didn't need it. It was a silent act, not meant to care for the jacket, but to show control. She was showing that she was in charge. But Keanu stayed calm, watching her, not bothered by the way she was acting. Keanu stayed where he was, still and quiet, as the store continued to hum with that silent tension. He didn't need to do anything more. He didn't need to prove anything. Sometimes, even when you have nothing to prove, people will still try to make you feel small. And sometimes, the ones who try to make you feel small have no idea who they're really dealing with. And Chloe? Chloe was still performing, still unaware that she was part of a bigger story than she could understand. He didn't try to grab the jacket again. Instead, he looked at it carefully, studying the texture, the pattern, and the tiny details that most customers didn't notice. He observed the jacket like someone remembers a special moment, not like someone buying an expensive item. His gaze lingered on the garment, quietly appreciating it. Lily, however, thought he was being quiet because he was unsure or nervous. She thought that meant she had more control over the situation. This belief made her feel more powerful, almost like she was in charge of everything around her. You know, Lily said, her voice light and sweet, a lot of people don't realize how heavy a real investment piece can be. Not just in price but in presence. These jackets, they enter the room before you do. She chuckled a little, proud of her own words. Keanu didn't smile or react in the way Lily expected. He simply responded, I believe that. Even clothes should speak before you do. His tone was calm, steady, and measured, almost as if he was explaining something everyone already knew. Lily's eyebrows raised slightly, surprised by his answer. She hadn't expected him to speak so thoughtfully, especially since she thought he was quiet and unsure. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, like she was trying to figure out the quiet man standing in front of her. But whatever doubt she had disappeared just as quickly as it came. Well, she said, tossing her hair back over her shoulder, people who buy jackets like this usually wear something more tailored underneath it. Something fitted. Hoodies don't really work with this. Keanu didn't blink or show any sign of agreement. Maybe they don't need to, he said simply. Not if you're shopping for comfort. Lily stepped back, feeling smug as she placed her hands on her hips. But this brand, she said with a touch of pride in her voice, our brand isn't about being comfortable. It's about elevation. About making you stand out. Across the room, Maya had stopped pretending to organize scarves. She was watching Lily and Keanu carefully, her lips pressed tightly together as if she could sense the tension between them. A couple in the corner of the boutique glanced over and whispered to each other. One of them casually pulled out their phone, no longer trying to hide it. It was clear they were filming the scene. Lily didn't notice any of this, or perhaps she didn't care. In her mind, it was just part of the show. She believed it would only help the store's reputation. Sir, Lily said, her voice still sweet but with a hint of impatience. If you're just looking, I need to ask you to step back from the limited edition pieces. We've had some accidents before. Some misunderstandings. I'm sure you understand. Keanu looked at her, his gaze calm, but something in his eyes shifted. It wasn't anger or sadness, just a quiet understanding, like he had seen this kind of thing before. I do, he said softly. People often misjudge things they don't expect. Lily smiled, thinking he agreed with her, but he was saying something deeper than she realized. Exactly, she replied, pleased with herself. Keanu tilted his head slightly, then spoke again, his voice gentle but direct. No, I mean people like to place value on the outside. They think that's where the story is. Lily froze, unsure of how to respond. She hadn't expected him to speak so thoughtfully. Her mouth opened, but before she could say anything, the door to the back office of the boutique clicked open. Footsteps echoed across the polished floor, signaling the arrival of someone new. Lily didn't turn around. It could be someone from the stockroom or a junior associate. Maybe even Clara, the manager, arrived early for her shift. It didn't matter though. In Lily's mind, she was doing everything right. She was in charge of the boutique, making sure everything looked perfect, protecting the brand. She straightened her shoulders and smiled again at Keanu, but his silence was starting to annoy her. It wasn't disrespectful, but it was unreadable. It felt like he was doing it on purpose, and that made her uncomfortable. She couldn't figure out why he wasn't reacting the way she expected. Do you work in entertainment? Lily asked, her voice a little more teasing this time. You look a little familiar. Keanu met her gaze calmly, his voice steady and composed. Maybe. His answer, brief and measured, unsettled Lily even more. She was used to people getting nervous or embarrassed when she spoke to them. But Keanu wasn't doing that. He wasn't shrinking away or feeling awkward. Instead, he looked like someone who was waiting for something. She couldn't figure him out, and that frustrated her. She tried again, pressing a little harder this time. Look, she said, her voice dropping slightly, sharpening with a bit of edge. This isn't really your usual kind of store, is it? Keanu didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a slow look around the boutique. His eyes passed over the shiny glass shelves, the soft light above the jacket displays, and the quiet, elegant atmosphere that seemed to hang in the air. The whole store felt like it was judging anyone who didn't belong. Then he turned his eyes back to Lily. Not usually, he said quietly. But sometimes I like to see how places treat people who don't look like they belong. Lily hesitated, processing his words for a moment. She didn't know how to respond. He had said something that made her feel uncomfortable, but she wasn't sure if it was because he was right or if it was just because she didn't like how calm he was. Her smile wavered for just a second before she caught herself. Well, she said, trying to regain control, if you're just observing, I still need to ask that you not lean in too close to the premium items. I'm responsible for this section of the store. Keanu nodded without resistance. Of course. Across the room, Maya was still watching. Her hands rested on a pile of scarves, but she wasn't pretending to sort them anymore. She watched the scene unfold with quiet interest, her eyes moving between Keanu and Lily, noticing how the other customers were starting to pay attention too. One young woman, standing near the handbags, discreetly started filming the interaction on her phone. Lily, still unaware, was too busy with her own certainty to notice what was happening around her. Tell you what, Lily said, trying to sound helpful. Why don't I get someone to escort you to the front? There's a section near the windows, perfect for casual browsing. It might match your style more. She turned to signal for someone, but before she could speak, a firm voice cut through the boutique. Lily. Everyone froze. Lily quickly turned around, and standing there in a sharp gray suit was Clara Brooks, the regional manager. Her presence filled the room, more powerful than any spotlight. But Clara wasn't looking at Lily. She was looking at the man in the hoodie. Clara's footsteps echoed on the polished floor as she walked toward Keanu, each step firm and deliberate. The tension in the air was thick, and it felt like time had stopped. Lily straightened, brushing her blazer and lifting her chin. She thought she could still salvage the situation, trying to seem calm and in control. Clara, she greeted with a nervous smile. Perfect timing. I was just dealing with... But Clara didn't respond. She didn't even stop walking. Her eyes were fixed on Keanu, standing in the shadows of the display. He wasn't bracing himself or reacting in any way. He was just standing there calmly as if he belonged. Clara stopped in front of him, and then something shifted on her face. It wasn't confusing. It was recognition. Her eyes widened slightly, and her mouth parted in surprise. Her posture changed, not from anger, but from respect. Mr. Reeves, Clara said softly, her voice filled with sudden understanding. I didn't know you'd arrive so early. The air in the boutique seemed to thicken. Lily blinked, her eyes darting between Keanu and Clara, trying to process what just happened. The name Reeves didn't make sense to her at first. She had heard it before, but it couldn't possibly be who she thought it was. Wait, she said, trying to understand. Reeves? Keanu gave a small, polite nod and said, Hi, Clara. I thought I'd drop by before the day gets busy. He said it calmly, not bragging or trying to show off, but somehow it made everyone listen closely. Clara quickly smiled, not because she had to, but because she was truly happy to see him. Of course we're honored, sir. If we had known you were coming, we would have prepared the private viewing room for you, she said. Keanu shook his head gently. No need, he said softly. I wanted to see things just as they are. His words weren't harsh, but they still felt strong. Everyone in the room, including Clara, Lily, and the other workers, suddenly became very quiet. Even the customers who were shopping looked up, their phones now resting in their laps, and the music in the background didn't sound as loud anymore. Lily stepped back a little, her voice, which had been strong before, now quiet and unsure. I didn't realize, she said softly. Keanu looked at her, but not kindly. No, he said, you didn't. His voice wasn't angry, but it felt serious. Lily knew this was not a question, but more of a final answer. Maya, standing nearby, sighed quietly, and you could almost hear the change in the room. Clara turned to Lily and said calmly, Would you excuse us for a moment? Lily hesitated, then nodded. She stepped back, unsure of where to put her hands or where to look. For the first time since Keanu walked in, it wasn't him who seemed out of place. Now Lily didn't feel like she belonged anymore. Clara didn't speak right away. She stood next to Keanu, her hands folded like she was guarding a special moment. The air between them felt still and important, and everyone around them seemed to feel it, even if they didn't know why. Lily stood near the scarf display, not talking. Her lips were pressed tight, and she felt like she couldn't say anything. No one else spoke either, and no one filled the quiet for her. After a while, Clara finally turned to Keanu and asked softly, Sir, should I have the private room ready for you now or the office? Keanu shook his head slowly. No, I came here as I am. That was the point. He looked around, not just at the pretty walls or expensive clothes, but at the people, the workers, the shoppers, everyone who had been watching him, judging him, even filming him. I wanted to see the store before we finished anything, he said. Not from a distance, not through a presentation. Just like a regular customer. Clara nodded, understanding what Keanu meant. It wasn't an inspection, it was more like looking in a mirror. Keanu looked at Lily briefly and said quietly, You learn a lot when people think you don't matter. They stop pretending. There was no anger in his words, just truth. And that truth felt heavy. Lily folded her arms, but it didn't look like she was being defiant. It was like she was trying to protect herself. Her face had lost some color, but she didn't say anything. She couldn't. She couldn't add anything to what was already happening around her. Keanu took a breath, then looked back at Clara. I'll be finalizing the deal this week. The paperwork is almost done. But before we do, I want to make one thing clear. His voice was still gentle, but it felt serious. I don't need this store to be fancy. I need it to feel real. Clara nodded, understanding. Keanu turned to Maya, who was standing behind a display of gloves. Her hands were no longer clenched, and when their eyes met, she stood up straighter, not out of fear but out of respect. She helped, Keanu said. She saw me. Maya looked surprised. She glanced at Lily, unsure what to say. Clara turned to her and said, Maya, we'll talk in my office after this. I think you're ready for more responsibility. Maya's face lit up, though she didn't smile big. Her joy was quiet but clear. Keanu then looked at Lily one last time. You don't always have to recognize someone to respect them, he said. But if you only respect the people you recognize, you're not protecting the brand. You're making it smaller. It wasn't a punishment. It was a lesson. And this time everyone listened. Lily could feel her cheeks getting hot, but she didn't say anything. The room felt colder now, and the silence had changed. It wasn't quiet because she was in charge anymore. Now it felt like everyone could see her, and the silence was too loud. Keanu stood just a few feet away, calm and composed. He wasn't showing off, and he wasn't angry. He had already said everything that needed to be said, and now it felt like Lily had nothing left to say. Maya had gone into the back with Clara earlier, looking a little more confident than she had before. The staff stayed where they were, pretending to organize things, but everyone felt the change in the room. Two customers who had been quietly watching now huddled together, looking at something on their phone. A video was already being shared. Lily looked at the reflection of herself in the glass window. She could see her own face, her voice sharp and her expression clear. And next to her, Keanu was calm, saying nothing at all. The image said more than any apology could. Her phone buzzed in her jacket pocket. Once, twice, then again. It was fast and urgent. Lily didn't reach for it. She didn't need to. She already knew what the messages would say. As Keanu reached for the door to leave, Clara appeared again, calling across the room. "Mr. Reeves, before you go, I've sent your assistant the final schedule for next week. We'll work with the press team on your terms, of course." Keanu paused and said, "Let's keep it simple." Clara nodded, and just as Keanu reached for the door, a man in a fancy jacket walked in. He looked at Keanu, unsure if he should step aside. Keanu held the door open for him without saying a word. The man muttered a quick thanks, but stopped when he recognized Keanu. Wait, was that? But Keanu was already gone, leaving only his hoodie behind as he stepped into the sunlight. Inside, Lily's phone buzzed again. She looked at it this time. The message said, "Is this real? Tell me that's not you in the video." Another message popped up, "You better fix this fast." Then a third message came, "The regional VP just called. Call me now." Lily stared at the messages, knowing the storm was just beginning. She swallowed hard and looked toward the door where Keanu had just walked out. She had spent so long building her work image, always staying calm and looking perfect. But in just 1 hour, everything had fallen apart. The man she tried to ignore didn't need to yell. He just waited until everyone could see her the way she had seen him. Lily sat behind the staff break room door, holding her phone, trying not to shake. She had locked herself in, saying she was organizing receipts, but everyone knew she wasn't. No one knocked on the door to check on her. They didn't need to. The boutique outside was too quiet. It was the kind of quiet that happens when something happens that people will remember forever. Something they can't forget. She checked her phone again. The video had already gotten 83,000 views. The video was only 37 seconds long. It showed her voice saying clearly, "This line isn't for people just browsing. We like to keep it pristine." Then the camera moved just enough to show Keanu, still calm, not saying anything, just watching her quietly. A few seconds later, Clara's voice could be heard saying, "Mr. Reeves, I didn't know you'd arrive so early." That was the moment everything changed. It wasn't just what she said. It was when she said it, how her voice dropped, and how everyone watching could feel something was different. 1 second she looked in control. Next she looked small and exposed. The comments started coming in. People were saying she treated Keanu Reeves badly just because he was wearing a hoodie. People were laughing at her. They said, "Don't judge someone by what they wear." Some even said, "Whoever Lily is, she's a good example of what not to do." People were now calling her name with hashtags. She hadn't even known someone had recorded it until she saw her name tagged. People found her old photos from a holiday ad 2 years ago. She wasn't known as a fashion expert anymore. She was just a joke. Lily put her phone down, but the damage was done. She still felt it like smoke hanging in the air. Her full name was all over social media. She wasn't just a fashion stylist now. She was a meme. She stood up slowly, holding the table to keep steady. She looked at her reflection in the shiny metal cabinet. Her hair was perfect. Her blazer was neat. Her lipstick was still on. But none of that mattered now because all people could see was how she treated Keanu. He didn't raise his voice. He just wanted respect. And instead of giving it to him, she tried to protect the wrong things, her image, her store, the idea of being special, rather than treating him like a person. From the hallway, she could hear quiet voices. They weren't angry, just aware. And awareness was worse than anger because now they didn't look at her with respect or fear. They looked at her with the understanding that she wasn't who she pretended to be. Her mask had slipped off and everyone could see the real her. When Lily finally left the break room, the boutique felt different. The perfume still smelled expensive. The fancy clothes still hung on the racks. But the mood had changed. She didn't feel like the one in charge anymore. She didn't feel admired or feared. She just felt like people were watching her, and that scared her. Maya gave her a quick look but didn't say anything. The other workers didn't even look at her. The silence that followed her through the store wasn't respectful. It was far away. No one wanted to be near her now. Lily walked toward the front of the store, not even sure what she wanted to do. Apologize? Pretend it never happened? It was too late for both. Outside, the sun was just going down and shadows stretched across the sidewalk. People were walking by. No one stopped to look at her. No one recognized her. But she knew somewhere out there her face was being shared on phones. People were judging her. freezing her face in time. Then the door opened and a delivery man came in holding a black envelope. "Delivery for Mr. Reeves," he said. Lily stood still, not moving. Clara walked up, took the envelope and thanked the man. She opened it and her eyes got wide, then softened. She turned the envelope around for everyone to see. Inside was a note, written neatly on paper with the store's logo on it. The note said, "Luxury doesn't start with price. It starts with presence. And everyone deserves to feel seen." At the bottom was a signature. Clara read it out loud. Everyone was quiet. Maya blinked and her lips almost curled into a smile. But Lily stood frozen. The words on the note burned inside her more than any of the bad comments online. Keanu could have done so many things. He could have fired her. He could have told everyone about her. He could have made her look bad. But instead, he wrote a note and let the world figure out what it meant. We live in a world where it's easy to judge and easy to ignore people, but sometimes, a story like this reminds us that kindness is a choice. And sometimes, saying nothing can say more than shouting ever could. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.